Good morning and welcome to another Fast Track webinar. This is a weekly event we do every Friday at 9 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Eastern, covering various topics of our software. This week we're going to be doing a session on utilizing the power of mass updates in Director. Mass updates is one of our premier tools, and it is by far and large one of the best and fastest ways to manage your price book. Last week we covered managing items and their properties. We'll pull an item up just to quickly touch on that because you'd want to have your price book detailed in order to fully utilize the power of mass updates. So we can see here that on this item, I've got a major category, manufacturer, and product group. The reason this is very important is because in mass updates, we can group items together and do changes by mass based on these categorizations. Instead of going item by item, one by one on my price book, I can do this by groups. So let's take a look at that. So once mass update loads, we can see we are by default at the tree view. Without filtering anything at all, everything in your price book is going to be showing up in this worksheet, in this grid. Now take note always of the number of items in your filter. That's a very important number because if you utilize any of the tools down below this area down here, it's going to be affecting all those items in this grid. And that number is going to tell you how many items it's going to be affecting. So just to quickly filter and look at this item here, we can see that it's categorized under SIG full price pack, ITG, and Winston. There's our UPC. To get to that, I can click on SIG full price, the little plus sign here to make that drop down. I can go to my full price pack, the manufacturer, ITG brands, and then Winston. That's going to filter to all these items that share the same categorization. We can see there's 7 items in that filter, and there's that item we have on item details. So if I make a change utilizing the tools down here, it's going to affect not just this item I have highlighted, it's going to affect 7 items. So always take note of that. Now, I'm going to show you a couple of filter options here. So I'm going to remove the current filter we have. And we're back to all 8,400 items. So I can highlight items by clicking and dragging, and I can filter based on that. Now, just a reminder, just because I have these highlighted does not mean that I can go down here and utilize these tools and it only affects those that are highlighted. That's wrong. It would affect all 8,400 items. So anytime you're going to filter based on a selection, you first highlight, whether that be clicking and dragging, clicking and using the control button on your keyboard, and then clicking other items. That lets you pick and choose, or clicking, holding the shift button, and then clicking once more, and it highlights everything in between that point. So if I want to filter to these items here, I simply right-click after I have it highlighted on the UPC number, and then I can filter based on selection. That's going to filter out all other items other than the ones that I had selected. Now, if I want to utilize the tools down here, I can make those changes and it only affects these 18 items. If I need to go deeper in between these items, say I want to go to just the meat here, I can highlight those, right-click, and filter once again. Let's go ahead and remove this filter. So we see how to filter based on our selections. We see how to filter based on our tree view. There's also the hierarchical view. You can click and choose a major category, choose your checkbox, choose a category, choose a checkbox, and notice it's filtering down items here. Your manufacturer, checkbox. You can basically do this all the way down to your subgroup, and it's going to filter each and every time. Then finally, there's the filter based on a field. You can do this by clicking in the field area, choosing, like, let's say, a department. I can filter to all items in my premium cigars department. I highlight that, apply filter. It's going to apply the filter and filter to just those items. I can also do other things like vendor. Show me all items in this vendor here. Apply that, and it's going to show me all items that are assigned to that vendor with the vendor part. So just keep in mind that you can filter based on these three ways, and then also by clicking and dragging, or filtering based on a selection. So let's look at some of the options down here, how to utilize those. So the first area we're going to look at is going to be our standard price updates. So let's go to these items here. And let's say that I want to change the price on these items. Well, I can do that by using this manual price tool. There's three options. I can set a flat value price. I can add a dollar amount to the price. I can add a percentage to the price. When I do these two options, I have the option to round up to 5 cents or up to 9 cents, or just not to round at all. Whenever I change the price, let's say that I'm going to be adding 10 cents. When I hit preview, it's going to show me what items are going to be updated, what the cost, old price, old margin, new price, and new margin is going to be. So I can see all these things that are going to be affected before I actually make that change. If I want to remove an item from this, I just simply click on it and then remove that item from the change. If I want to apply this to more than one price book zone, I can just simply double click on the other price book zone I want to apply this to. And then I'm going to be applying this price change to multiple price book zones. If I choose apply changes now, that's going to then update the price for both zones. Now, let's say that I want to schedule this, and this is a very, very, very powerful tool. Let's say that I'm going to be on vacation next week. I'm the Pricebook coordinator, and I have price changes that are going to be going down next week. Those obviously need to be done, and someone needs to do those, unless I schedule those. To do that, I just do like I normally would, adjusting my price using my price tools down here. I'll preview that. And then instead of choosing the Apply Changes button, which applies it immediately and sends it to your queue, I'll choose the Schedule button. So I'll say I want this to occur, let's say a week from today, so the 18th at midnight. And I'll choose Schedule. That means that this change will not occur until the 18th at midnight. So it's going to stay at this price here until the 18th, and then at midnight, it's automatically going, the system is going to have a scheduled task that runs that automatically changes that price and adds that 10 cents to these 7 items at midnight on the 18th. So it's a very, very powerful tool in how you can schedule these changes to occur whenever you would like. You can also set your prices based on margins or markup. It follows the same principle. I can say that if I want to make a 9.75% margin here, I can preview that, and it's going to go as close to 9.75 as possible. And I can apply that now, or I can schedule it. These options here, if we look at the preview here, we can see that the price is 10.14, 10.15. Like I said, this lets you round up to 5 cents or 9 cents. It gives you different options of doing that. So I can choose preview, and it's going to go up to 9 cents there. All right, so that covers our standard price changes. We're going to look at the cost updates now. And this follows very, very similar to how the price changes were. I can set a flat value. I can add a dollar amount. I can add a percentage amount. Now, a quick tip, let's say that I want to remove a value. Well, there's not an option for that. All you have to do is simply, in this Add field, just throw a negative sign in what you want to place. So if I want to remove 10 cents, the 10 cents I just added, I just throw a negative sign in front of that 10 cents preview, and then we can see that it's removing 10 cents. All right, there's my old cost, there's my new cost. Old margin, new margin. That can also work for your percentages too. If you want to add a negative percentage to the cost, just simply throw a negative sign in front of that. Now, there's a checkbox here to apply to vendor part. This follows, it does exactly that. If I had this unchecked, it's only going to update my last cost. If I have this checked, then it's going to update the vendor part for items that are associated with that vendor, if there's a vendor part associated. All right, so the next area will be field updates. And this is a great way to group your items to make it where you can utilize mass updates. So let's say that all my Winstons, I want to change that to, instead of ITG brands, I want to change it to ITG brand. I don't want to have to go through all of these one by one and change that. I can simply filter like I have here. I can go to my manufacturer column here in that selected field. I can put in my new text, and then I can set that field to the new text. And it's going to update ITG brands to ITG brand. As simple as that. The next option we can do is setting a new field text and matching that. So what this does is, let's say that I have, let's go to my full price pack. And notice we have a lot of items in this filter, 224. They do not have the same manufacturer. Well, now we see that I have ITG brands and ITG brand. I want those to be consistent. So what I can do is I can put this new field text to ITG brands. I can change the match text to ITG brand. I can change that to the new text. So what it's going to be doing is anywhere that manufacturer is set to ITG brand, it's going to change that to ITG brands, even though I have it filtered to just those items. This is a great way to basically rename, recategorize, however you want to handle that, items to different categorizations without having to filter individual items. So now there's all my ITG brands. The ITG brand that we just changed a couple moments ago is now gone. This works for all of these filter options here. So I can change my categorizations, I can change my report groups. There's other things here you can change, such as like a department. You can change the department number of items by math. You can change, is an item eligible for a system discount? You can change the price names, the POS flags. You can change things like your RJ Reynolds promotional amount and is it on a promo? So this selected field option here in your field updates area is very powerful when changing the item categorizations by mass. It saves so much time. Just always, always, always be very careful whenever you're doing this to pay attention to that number. That's the number of items you're always changing. It doesn't matter what's in this grid. That's what you're going to be changing. So filter accordingly, because anytime you change a field, you cannot revert that change. We'll go over in a moment on how to revert cost and price changes, but there is no undo on field changes. So be very careful on that. The next area we're going to look at is reports. This is a quick way to view item reports. Each report, I would suggest you just filter to some items, pull it up and look at how it looks. Just as an example here, I'm going to filter to, say, these items here. And it's just going to simply be item reports to what you have in that grid. Like this shows your tree information, so it shows your categorizations. I can see that with vendor information if I have a vendor part associated with those items. So it's just simply put item level reports. And this is the only place you can get those item reports. Other reports in the report section is going to be based on inventory or sales or things like that, not just strict item level reports. Utilities is the next area we're going to look at. This is a place to mass assign your what we call definitions for like buy downs and system discounts and loyalty campaigns and commission campaigns by mass to items. Now there's a way to do that on their respective modules, like in buy downs and in system discounts you can assign, but mass updates is by far easier because everything is in one place. So if I want to add a system discount to, let's say, some cartons here, let's pull that up and we'll filter down to, let's say, the Marlboros. I can simply filter to those items, and then I can choose my discount. Say I want to add it to my Marlboro multi-pack, and then I can add those items to that discount. Now, as a reminder, this would be adding all 62 items, so everything filtered in this window. So if you wanted to add specific items, make sure you filter accordingly. Because like I said, there's not an undo button for that. So you can add items to buy downs. You can add vendor parts for items, and what adding vendor parts does is it will simply copy the UPC number to the vendor part and create a vendor part for that vendor. Now, where do you select that vendor at? That's going to be here. If you have multiple vendors, you'll have multiple vendors in that dropdown. We've already gone over our adding to discounts. Now take note, there are two additional values here. There's your value of the discount, and there's the option to add as a trigger item. That coincides directly with system discount options, because with system discounts, there's your discount items and there's your trigger items. Trigger meaning that this has to be on the transaction first before the discount can trigger. So if I'm having to trigger, if I want to add these to as a trigger item and not the discounted item, I would want to make sure that I choose add as trigger item. In the case of like Marlboro loyalty programs, you would want your packs and your cartons to share a discount. And that's where the value field comes into play. If I have a, let's say, a 10-cent multi-pack discount on my packs, I would leave that value the default 1, and I would add my packs. Let's go to my Marlboro packs. I would add my packs here with the value of 1. I'll just choose the discount I want and add. What that's going to do, this value field, is it's a multiplier. It's going to multiply 1 times whatever that discount amount is, which is going to be, in this case, for that Marlboro multi-pack, 5 cents. Now, in the multiplier for the carton, you'd probably want to make that worth more because it's effectively 10 packs. So, on the carton field, if I want to add those cartons to the discount, I want the customer to get the correct discount amount, so I would put 10 there because there's 10 packs in that carton. What this effectively does is it's going to multiply that 10 by the discount amount. So I'm giving 50 cents off if they buy a carton. So one carton is worth 50 cents off, one pack is worth 5 cents off. Below that is going to be your campaigns. If it is a points per item campaign, then I can add how many points that item is worth. If it's a coupon item or an item filter, as in like items that are eligible for those loyalty campaigns, choose accordingly. And then there's your commission campaign option. So you can mass add items to commission campaigns. The next area we're going to look at is going to be your additional utilities. Update subunit cost. This is only used if you manually update the cost of items in the grid. And what I mean by that is let's take a look at this. Let's go to my Winston cartons. And let's filter to those. Let's say that I'm changing those as a cost of $90. Notice that you can change your values here, not using the tool down here. So if I want to manually update those, I can change the value here, enter. And those are changed. Now, since I manually changed this value, if I go to my packs in my Winstons, which I'll need to reload here, notice those values have not changed. That's because I'm manually updating these via the grid. If I use the tool down here, the cost updates tool, it's going to automatically adjust both the carton and the pack because there's a link. The tool does that for you. If you manually update via the grid here, then you have to utilize this tool called Update Subunit Cost. So I've got my cartons here. I choose the Update Subunit Cost. And then I go to my packs. And then those values are changed. So remember, if you're manually updating your cost in this grid, if there's a linked item, you need to use this Update Subunit Cost for that, because it's not going to update that manually or automatically. You have to do that manually. The next button we'll look at is the Undo Changes. This is an option to undo your price changes or cost changes. Now, take note. There's a date range here. So I can't pick and choose individual things to undo. It's going to undo everything in a specific time frame. So if I choose like yesterday and today and apply that, I can't undo the change there and just undo that. It's going to undo all of these changes. So just make sure that if you ever have to utilize this tool, you take the precautions needed and know that it's going to adjust everything in this time frame. You have the option to flag items as inactive, which that would flag everything in this grid as an inactive item, which is effectively discontinued. You can't sell it, you can't order it, you can't inventory it. You can view your scheduled changes. This allows you to view any kind of cost or price change that has been scheduled using that schedule button. You can delete individual price and cost changes out using the delete button. You can set a part description to an item description. This would only be used if you have a vendor part that has a different vendor part description than the item description. As in, if I go to this item here, for example, and it's a Winston box carton, and I copy this vendor part, and I go to my vendor part here, and I filter, I save that. I effectively now have a different vendor part description when compared to my UPC description. This would allow me to set that part description as the same as my item description. So this is generally used if for some reason someone has been updating one and not the other. For example, you update the item description and not the vendor part description, or vice versa. This would set those to the same. And it always sets it based on the item description itself. You can discount or disable the discount eligibility, which that is this checkbox right here. If that's checked, which by default it is, that means that the item is eligible for system discounts. If it's unchecked, it's not eligible for system discounts. So if I disable the discount eligibility, it's going to uncheck that for everything in this grid. The next option is going to be ways to remove items from buy downs and system discounts. If I choose like my Marlboro Loyalty here and I choose remove from discount, if these items are in that Marlboro loyalty discount, it's going to remove those items from that. Same with the buy down. If I chose the Marlboro carton buy down and I choose remove from buy down, it's going to remove those from that buy down. If I choose remove from all discounts or remove from all buy downs, it's going to remove this filtered set of items from everything in system discounts and buy downs. The next area we look at is the store updating. This is generally only used whenever you're installing a new store and having to send down the corporate price book. It's pretty self-explanatory. You check box things here, and that's going to send those sets of items from the corporate side to the store side. So if I check buy downs, for example, it's going to send both my buy downs and the items that are in buy downs to the store. It queues those up. I have the option to check everything or clear everything. As a note, be very careful when using this delete data first checkbox, because what this does is I'll say that I'm checking everything, and I choose delete data first. What this will do is when I hit update stores, it's going to generate my queue records for these two stores. And then when I send the queue down, it's going to send a delete command for everything here that's going to hit the stores before it sends everything else down. Meaning, everything's going to be deleted at store level, and I have to wait for internet speeds to send the entire price book down to that store. So if I, for example, if I delete buy downs and system discounts and vendor parts, that store, until the queue gets finished sending, can't sell anything with a buy down. The buy down wouldn't apply. Can't receive an order or generate an order or receive an invoice because there's no vendor parts. And discounts, anything that's in a system discount would not work because there isn't a system discount. So always be very careful of utilizing this delete data first. The next area we're going to look at is going to be the zone utilities price. This lets you compare and copy prices from zone to zone. So for example, if I want to copy all my prices from zone 0 to zone 1, I can simply choose that. Then I have the option to copy the exact same price, add a dollar amount, subtract a dollar amount, add a percentage, or subtract a percentage amount. I can preview that. So let's say that I want to add 10 cents. And that's going to show me my old price and my new price. That's going to be for zone 1. Remember, it's going to be copying the price from zone 0, which is because that's what I have selected, and adding 10 cents to that before updating zone number 1. The cost utility works the exact same way. I can copy from one zone to another, and I have the same options. The next area that we're going to look at is going to be the compare zones utility. This lets you compare Pricebook zones. So if I choose the compare zones, and I'm looking at, let's say, my lighters, and I'm comparing zone 0 to zone 1. If I choose compare and there's no differences, then nothing's going to show up. There's nothing there. But if I choose one that's based on, I think there's some differences here. There we go. Notice this time the grid filled in. That's because there's a difference in the cost in these fields. So those are the same cost, but there's a different price. So due to something being different, it's going to show up here in the grid. I can then print that out based on a report. The final area we're going to look at is going to be the Uplifts tab. And this is if you have the premium modules Uplifts enabled. This allows you to add and remove items from Uplifts. I can simply filter through my group of items. I can choose the uplift I want to add those to. And do I want to add that as a trigger item or a sell item? I would add accordingly. And then if I want to clear existing items first, that would basically wipe the uplift clean of the trigger items before adding these, or wipe the uplift of the sell items before adding these as the sell items. All right, so the next thing we're going to look at is going to be the general filter of everything in this grid and mass updates. So I can see by default based on Pricebook 0 or I could see it based on Pricebook 1. Now, notice there's not much of a change. The colors, you can see a couple of numbers changing down there. To make that easier for me to recognize, you would probably want to change the color scheme of one of these zones. So to do that, we would go to our maintenance module. We would go to the Pricebook area. Let's say I want this to be, instead of that blue, I want it to be yellow. I will save that. I'll then go back to mass updates. I'll let mass updates load. And then whenever I choose that other zone down here, the color is going to change. So over time, I'm going to know that yellow is equal to Pricebook Zone 1. I could have red equal to Pricebook Zone 2, so on and so forth. So I don't really have to pay attention to what's selected. I just know based on the color scheme. There's the vendor selector. So this is going to show what vendor parts are being seen here. So like, for example, if I go to items that I know have vendor parts, I know that these vendor parts are associated to vendor number 1. Now, if I had another vendor here, I could choose a secondary vendor, and if I see vendor parts in this tab, I know that it's vendor number 2. The next area is the include inactive items. By default, it's going to include everything in this grid. However, if I have inactive items and I don't want to see those, I can uncheck that, and that will then hide inactive items from this mass updates grid. That way I don't have to see anything that I don't carry anymore. All right, and the last thing I want to show you today is the custom filters utility. And this is a feature that I don't see being utilized near as much as it should be. It's a very powerful tool to filter to specific groups of items that you may want to change at the same time, but may share different categorizations. So for example, let's take a look at what I have here. I'm going to manage the filters, and I'm going to apply this filter here. We can see that the filter details, I'm showing everything that has a category of full price carton and full price pack with a manufacturer in ITG brands, Philip Morris, and RJ Reynolds. Well, there would be no way for me to select full price pack and full price carton. There's no way for me to do that because it's going to filter based on what I have clicked. So this utility lets me filter to both of those. I just have to create that custom filter. So whenever I apply that filter, it's going to be applying and showing everything in my full price pack and carton in those manufacturers. So I can then change everything, all four of those manufacturers in those two categories at the same time. That saves me several clicks and several filters of having to do that. It's just a matter of setting that up. And to do that, you just do that under Manage Filters. I can create a brand new filter. Let's say that I'm going to call this generic filter number 1. And I want to do that based on a category. So I'm going to select a category. And let's say that this is going to be my generic carton, my generic pack. And I want to add that to the filter. So it's going to be everything in that category, both of those. And then I want to do manufacturer. And that's where I would choose my manufacturers. I would add those. I'm just going to select 2 here. It's not going to be a legit filter, but I select 2 here. I would then add that. So it would then be everything in this category, those 2, and everything in those 2 manufacturers. When I'm done, I can save that filter. And then I can filter to everything in both those categories and both those manufacturers in one click. Like I said, this can save you a lot of time when having to do redundant work of applying specific both to cost changes and price changes to your subunit and purchase unit. You can group those together and do that in one quick click. Okay, so that is what I had for today. I hope everybody learned a couple new things and learned a couple tips in mass updates. As I said, this is an event we do every Friday at 9 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Eastern. You can sign up for these and view previous webinars by going to the GoFTx website, choosing FTx Lifeline, scrolling down to the webinar page, choosing that, and then this page has all of the previous recordings we have, as well as links to sign up for new webinars that are upcoming. I thank you for your time, and I hope to see you next week.